A little bit of context here. This was a science project I had to do for my final project and thing. So I decided to do a video about what would happen if all of Earth's resources disappeared, and then thought to myself, well, this is decent enough, so I'm gonna make it a YouTube video. So here it is. Please don't laugh at me. Wake up one day and it's just like any other day. You stand up and you see that your clock is stuck at 12 a.m., meaning there has been no power for a few hours now. You ignore it, as it is normal in big cities, and keep on going with your morning. But other things are off. It is way too quiet for being in an apartment in the middle of the city, and noise is something you're used to, so silence is very awkward. You look outside and see that there are no cars. Most trees near are gone. You check the water, it is salty, just like the ocean. You try to check your phone, but it has no Wi-Fi. This is the scenario millions of people would be in if all of Earth's resources disappeared. Today, I will explain how the world would be like if all of its resources just vanished out of nowhere. Before we start, there are some things we should consider. First of all, I will not include things like oxygen or water, since if that was the case, it would be a 1 minute long video, and we would all be dead in seconds, pretty much. In this scenario, all water turns salty and undrinkable. Additionally, resources will disappear one at a time, until the end, where we will see if we could all live the catastrophe. So, with that stated, let's begin. If this were to happen, one of the first things you would notice is that all plants would be gone. All of the type of plants are considered resources. The next immediate thing you would notice, it will be the temperature. Because of the extra CO2, thanks to no oxygen cycle, the temperature would increase by a lot in just a few days. Talking about CO2, we would start getting sick because of the lack of oxygen. Eventually, we would start dying. One of the ways we can survive would be by using seeds we have stored safely. The US has a reserve of seeds of most plants and trees, called the Doomsday Seed Vault. It's a cube filled with every type of edible plant. This was made in case of a nuclear war or catastrophe, like the one we made up. Even then, it will be a good time before the plants start growing. The only real way we could do this would be if we get an enclosed space and put the seeds and let them grow. And then a controlled amount of people would be kept there, and the oxygen cycle in there. Even then, it will be for small amounts of people, and it will be very hard. So we know that without plants we would definitely die, leaving the planet abandoned until somehow plants start growing again and a new species of surviving species evolves. Next, we will visit something we saw at the beginning of the video: water. So, we created a scenario where all water is now salty. You may think this is a terrible thing, but it would be certain death. And the answer is that yes, but at the same time no. Let me explain. If water were all to become salty, millions, maybe billions would panic. People in the US, Russia, China, and most countries would start dying within 2 days of this, and billions of lives would be lost. But there would be a way to save people. In some countries, like the Emirates, they have a way to use salt water to get fresh water. What they do is they take the ocean water and remove the salt. They do this by taking the water through tubes and filters that keep the salt from going through. Eventually, the world would start using this process to get water for everybody. So at the end, we would survive, but we would lose millions, if not billions of lives along the way. We have survived so far, but let's see if we can survive getting rid of the next resource: all minerals, which my favorite scenario, especially thinking about oil. Now this part of the video is split into two parts. The first part is oil, because it's very interesting in itself. The second part are things like copper, iron, silver, and all that things that go into a separate category called minerals. So first we're gonna go on with oil. Now oil is technically a mineral, and it should be a category of itself, because without oil you wouldn't be watching this. You would not be in class right now. You wouldn't be using your phone. You wouldn't have power, clean water, transportation. The internet would not even be a thing. Without oil, every type of technology that has invented or developed would be worthless. A century of advancements would go down the drain immediately. Let me explain. Through oil is how we get most of our power. So things like houses with lights, devices, and everything else that needs power to function would not work at all. The internet requires oil to function. Water needs energy to move through pipes. Economies from places like Iraq, Libya, Saudi Arabia, which is one of the #1 exporters of oil in the world, and many other places would start being extremely poor because of the lack of oil. The only places that would survive would be places like Reykjavik, Iceland's capital. There, 99.9% of its energy is completely renewable, and most cars are electric. They do not rely on oil at all, and would not even notice the lack of it. So concluding this, we would survive, but we would be set back almost 100 years in the past. So we can mark that as an immediate resource we could lose, but no extreme consequences immediately. What about other minerals? Now, you may think that if minerals disappear, there will be no consequence immediately, since we only use it to build things and are not 100% for life to continue. But in reality, we would see the change almost immediately. About 32% of the Earth's crust is made up of iron, meaning that there will be sinkholes, new ravines, and maybe even earthquakes. Also, this means new technology won't happen, and we have to find new materials to replace them. If not immediately kills us, but it would change the way we live, just like it would happen if oil disappeared. So with this, we have the results. If Earth's resources were all depleted, we would die. Within a month, would be less than 1 million people on Earth. Why? It's very simple. If you combine all the scenarios we have talked about, without even mentioning the thousands of other resources I have skipped, we will not only be set back to the Stone Age, we run out of oxygen, communications, disaster will strike, and much, much more. Now, this all is a scenario, and it won't happen from today to tomorrow. But we can easily run out of resources if we're not careful. Just to realize how bad we're doing, you can go to www.theworldcounts.com and see how quickly we're running out of resources. Even then, it doesn't mean we can't stop it. First, we have to stop relying on all oil, as we saw how catastrophic it would be if we have an Earth with no oil. Also, we have to understand the importance of trees and plants and take care of them. A single tree that is planted is a big step. Even you can help. Plant a plant. Use water responsibly. Don't waste power. Use a bicycle instead of a car, and many much more. Thank you for watching this video.